My sister did not raise her voice. She did not have to. She stood up in front of 15 relatives, smoothed her perfect suit, and announced she was tripling my rent of $7 and $500 because I needed to learn my place as a failed property manager. The room laughed. Someone whispered that maybe this would finally fix me. I just sat there feeling the kind of humiliation that burned straight through your spine. But I did not argue. I did not beg. I sent one text. 20 minutes later, the door opened, and when my lawyer walked in holding the deed with my name on it, the deed showing I had owned her building for 4 years, my sister went dead white. And that was the moment everything in my family shattered. And finally, everything inside me stopped breaking. My name is Lucas Bennett, and this is the story I never thought I would say out loud. Before I tell you everything, I would love to know you are here with me. Comment hi, or tell me where you are watching from. Knowing someone is listening, it means more than you think. And if my story resonates with you, please subscribe. It helps me keep sharing the things I spent years being too afraid to say. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. I grew up in the Bennett family, the kind of family where success was not just valued, it was worshipped. Titles, applause, public recognition. Those were the currencies everyone respected. And if you did not shine loud enough to be seen from across a room, you were invisible. For as long as I can remember, I lived in that shadow. The quiet kid in a house built for people who love the sound of their own victories. My name is Lucas Bennett. I am 30 years old, and I work in property management. Not glamorous, not headline-worthy, but real work. I have always quietly taken pride in it. In my family's eyes, though, my job was a confirmation that I had fallen below the Bennett standard, a reminder that I did not rise the way a Bennett was supposed to. Every family gathering had the same rhythm. Victoria Hayes, my older sister by 4 years, taking center stage, as if she were presenting to a courtroom, even at Sunday brunch. She had changed her last name to Hayes after her early marriage, but everyone in the family still used her full name out of habit. She was the family's crown jewel, the brilliant attorney from Columbia Law, the one people bragged about to neighbors and extended cousins. And I was the afterthought, the polite nod, the supportive smile, the sibling who supposedly never pushed hard enough. Victoria Hayes was skilled in a way that felt surgical. Her compliments were precise, and her insults even sharper. She knew how to belittle me with a sweetness that made her look generous while still cutting me down, especially when relatives were watching. I lived in Hawthorne Park Apartments, a building under the family's long chain of assets right in Brookfield, Chicago. A 2-bedroom unit with creaky pipes and an aging heating system. Victoria Hayes never bothered to fix, though she loved to remind me I was getting a deal. What she did not know was that I handled most of the repairs myself late nights, tightening valves, recalibrating boilers, replacing old fixtures, because no one else would. The building was far from perfect, but it was home, and working on it gave me a sense of purpose she never understood. The only person who ever truly saw me was my grandmother, Eleanor Bennett. 6 months before she passed, she told me something I could not fully grasp. Then that strength does not always roar, and the smartest people in a room rarely need to prove anything. I did not know that those words would become the spine of everything that came later. So when the family called a meeting to finalize a few remaining matters regarding her estate, I went without thinking much of it. But from the moment I walked in and saw Victoria Hayes' expression too calm, too rehearsed, I knew something was off. The way she greeted me, her tone smooth as polished glass, set an unease in my chest. It felt like she had been waiting for this moment, as if the whole meeting existed to unveil something she had planned long before anyone else arrived. By the time I sat down, a single thought pressed itself into my mind with an uncomfortable persistence. Whatever was coming was not an accident. It felt like a trap that had been built slowly, piece by piece, and I was just now stepping into the center of it. I walked into my grandmother's house in Pinecrest, and for a moment the old wooden scent wrapped around me like a memory. The ticking of her grandfather clock, steady and patient, made me think of the evenings we spent talking in this very room. Her teaching me that silence can reveal more truth than 1,000 loud words. But that steadiness vanished the moment I stepped into the living room. 15 relatives sat in a wide circle, their eyes fixed on Victoria Hayes as if she were delivering a keynote speech rather than hosting a family meeting. The tension was so thick it felt choreographed. Victoria Hayes stood with her leather binder and laptop, every movement polished like she had practiced it in front of a mirror. And knowing her, she probably had. She cleared her throat, and the room snapped to attention. Then she announced that before discussing the estate, there was an urgent personal matter that needed to be addressed: my lease. My lease. Out of all the things to prioritize, she chose that. She clicked her laptop and a spreadsheet appeared showing market comparisons across Brookfield, Chicago. According to her, my unit had been severely underpriced for years. She claimed I had been receiving a discount no one else would ever get, suggesting I had taken advantage of her generosity. Then came her verdict. My rent was going from $2,600 to $7,500 a month, effective immediately. Gasps, whispers, small nods, even a stifled laugh. Not a single person said a word in my defense. Not one. Victoria Hayes kept talking, explaining that I needed to learn my place, that being a property manager did not exempt me from real-world standards that I had been coasting for too long. She disguised humiliation as mentorship, a talent she had perfected. But as she spoke, something clicked in my mind. The numbers on her chart were not accurate. She had chosen the most inflated listings in the entire Brookfield area, ignoring dozens of valid comps. She was not making a financial adjustment. She was making a spectacle, a performance. This was not about rent. It was about solidifying herself as the unchallenged authority of the family's assets. And then another realization hit me sharper than the first. If she succeeded in pushing me out of Hawthorne Park, she would remove the only person who consistently monitored the building. She would have full, unopposed control. She was not just increasing rent. She was clearing the board. I kept my face neutral, but my mind drifted to the letter my grandmother left only for me. The one Victoria Hayes did not know existed. The one that told me to stay patient because your moment will come. And when it does, let truth speak for you. Victoria Hayes smirked, thinking she had cornered me, thinking she had won. But she had no idea she was standing on a trap she built for someone else, and that it was about to snap shut on her instead. Victoria Hayes slid the new lease across the coffee table with a smile that did not reach her eyes and told me to sign it right now. The pressure in the room shifted. 15 relatives sitting around us, waiting to witness my humiliation. But her voice, sharp and smug, triggered a memory so vivid it pulled me out of that living room entirely and dropped me back into my grandmother's study months before she died. I remembered her calling me over, quietly asking me to sit beside her as she opened the drawer of her old oak desk. Her hands, though frail, were steady when she placed a small brass key and a sealed envelope into my palm. She told me not to open them until the time comes, and in that moment I had not understood what she meant, but I had felt the weight of those objects like a promise. After she passed, I opened her safe with that tiny brass key. Inside was $225,000, her handwritten investment ledgers, a folded map of Hawthorne Park and the surrounding blocks, and a letter addressed only to me. In the letter, she told me she believed in what I could build if I trusted myself instead of chasing the approval of a family addicted to noise. She told me to become self-reliant, to invest in quiet strength, and most importantly, to never let Victoria Hayes hold power over anything meant for me. That warning came back to me now, like a voice echoing inside my chest. 4 years earlier, using the money she left me, I formed Summit Peak Holdings LLC, anonymous, low-profile, deliberately quiet. With it, I bought 52% of Hawthorne Park from the family trust. Victoria Hayes herself had signed off on the paperwork without more than a cursory glance because she believed she was just approving another routine liquidation, one of dozens she handled each year. Since that purchase, I had renovated the heating system, updated the electrical grid, repaired water damage on 3 floors, and modernized half the units. The building doubled in value, rising from $3.2 million to $6.0 million. But to my family, I was still the kid brother with the small job too unremarkable to understand the world Victoria Hayes conquered. Now, in the present, Victoria Hayes stood across from me with that same dismissive confidence, unaware she had once willingly handed me the control she thought she owned. I looked at her with a calm she misread as defeat. She had no idea the building she was using to humiliate me was something I had quietly shaped into a profitable, well-run property under her oblivious management. She tapped the page again. "Sign it," she said, certain she had cornered me. The room hummed with whispers, all eyes trained on me as if I were a student being scolded by a teacher. I slipped my phone from my pocket and typed a single message to Nathan Cole, my attorney, the only person who knew the truth about Hawthorne Park. Then I closed the phone slowly. I only needed 20 minutes. 20 minutes for the ground beneath Victoria Hayes to shift. As I waited, I thought of another detail from my grandmother's documents. A handwritten note tucked between her ledgers warned me not to let Victoria Hayes hold my rights for too long. And there had been more, an old trust report showing a suspicious expense Victoria Hayes had signed 2 years earlier, a transfer that did not match any family-approved project. I had kept it knowing someday it might matter. And now, looking around at the relatives nodding blindly at everything Victoria Hayes said, I finally understood why my grandmother had trusted me more than she ever trusted them. I knew the roles were about to reverse. The room still buzzed with doubt and pity, but inside me was nothing but a steady certainty. Victoria Hayes thought she was tightening the trap. My presence had value she did not want to lose. Still, I did not argue. I did not defend myself or try to justify anything. I simply waited. I knew what was coming. And the more Victoria Hayes spoke, the more she dug herself deeper into the hole she had built. As she ranted about responsibility and ambition, the front windows reflected the passing headlights outside. Minutes slipped by. My phone vibrated once Nathan Cole letting me know he was close. Victoria Hayes mistook the faint smile on my face for embarrassment. She did not know it marked the beginning of the end. I kept my silence. The storm was almost here, and all I had to do was hold steady while Victoria Hayes unknowingly positioned herself at its center. I heard the car before anyone else did, the soft crunch of tires against the gravel outside my grandmother's house. It was subtle, barely noticeable beneath the rising tension inside the living room, but I recognized it immediately. Nathan Cole had arrived. No one else in that room had the slightest idea of what was coming, and that quiet knowledge settled over me like a steadying hand. Victoria Hayes kept talking, her voice slicing through the room with every word. She insisted that my hesitation proved I lacked responsibility, that my resistance showed I was not capable of handling basic adult obligations. She made it clear she believed I did not deserve the apartment, the neighborhood, or even the dignity of being taken seriously. Every sentence carried the same self-satisfied certainty, the belief that she was right and everyone else existed to agree with her. I looked around the room. A few relatives were visibly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, darting glances between us. They were not blind. They could see how aggressively Victoria Hayes was pushing, but comfort and integrity rarely coexist in a family where perks were handed out quietly. They did not dare speak against the person who kept their rent low and their lease terms flexible. When I calmly repeated that my attorney needed to review the contract before I signed anything, Victoria Hayes laughed like it was the most ridiculous thing she had heard. She reminded everyone how expensive legal services were, and implied I could not maintain one even if I tried. The laugh that followed stung not because it hurt, but because she so confidently believed I could not possibly have built a life beyond the narrow frame she created for me. Jacob Reed, my cousin, who always enjoyed stirring tension, jumped in next. Jacob Reed jumped in, next tossing out a snide comment crafted to escalate things. He clearly wanted a show, wanted me to snap or raise my voice so he could sit back and enjoy the spectacle. But I did not give him what he wanted. I heard the car before anyone else did the soft crunch of tires against the gravel outside my grandmother's house. It was subtle, barely noticeable beneath the rising tension inside the living room, but I recognized it immediately. Nathan Cole had arrived. No one else in that room had the slightest idea of what was coming, and that quiet knowledge settled over me like a steadying hand. Victoria Hayes kept talking, her voice slicing through the room with every word. She insisted that my hesitation proved I lacked responsibility, that my resistance showed I was not capable of handling basic adult obligations. She made it clear she believed I did not deserve the apartment, the neighborhood, or even the dignity of being taken seriously. Every sentence carried the same self-satisfied certainty, the belief that she was right and everyone else existed to agree with her. I looked around the room. A few relatives were visibly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, darting glances between us. They were not blind. They could see how aggressively Victoria Hayes was pushing, but comfort and integrity rarely coexist in a family where perks were handed out quietly. They did not dare speak against the person who kept their rent low and their lease terms flexible. When I calmly repeated that my attorney needed to review the contract before I signed anything, Victoria Hayes laughed like it was the most ridiculous thing she had heard. She reminded everyone how expensive legal services were and implied I could not maintain one even if I tried. The laugh that followed stung not because it hurt, but because she so confidently believed I could not possibly have built a life beyond the narrow frame she created for me. Jacob Reed jumped in next, tossing out a snide comment crafted to escalate things. He clearly wanted a show, wanted me to snap or raise my voice so he could sit back and enjoy the spectacle. But I did not give him what he wanted. Nathan Cole introduced himself, stating clearly and firmly that he represented me in matters concerning real estate and property transactions. He and I had prepared these documents weeks earlier, anticipating that this moment might eventually come. Victoria Hayes immediately protested, insisting that this was a private family issue, that lawyers were unnecessary, that I was over-dramatizing. But her voice had lost the smooth certainty she carried earlier. It wavered in places she could not hide. Jacob Reed could not look away from Nathan Cole, watching him as if he were trying to crack some secret code. I could see the calculation forming behind his eyes, trying to figure out just how much I had been holding back. Nathan Cole opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of documents, placing them deliberately at the center of the table. He announced that everything inside directly concerned the management of Hawthorne Park, the same building Victoria Hayes believed she controlled. I glanced at her. Her jaw tightened and she stared past me instead of meeting my eyes. She knew something was coming, even if she did not know exactly what. Nathan Cole began laying out each document. Certificates, transfer agreements, meeting minutes, transaction approvals. Each page revealed another layer of the truth. 4 years earlier, I had legally acquired 52% ownership of Hawthorne Park. Victoria Hayes was the one who signed the paperwork without reviewing it thoroughly, approving a transaction that transferred majority control to Summit Peak Holdings, my company. A silence settled so deep it felt like the house itself was listening. When Nathan Cole stated plainly that I had been the legal majority owner of Hawthorne Park for 4 full years, Victoria Hayes shot to her feet, denying it, saying it was impossible. Nathan Cole simply flipped to a page showing her signature, the one she had ignored when she approved the sale, rendering her objections meaningless. The moment she saw it, her face collapsed into disbelief. The room erupted with whispers. Gone were the smug looks and judgmental stares. They were replaced by confusion, embarrassment, and something resembling shame. Victoria Hayes scrambled for her laptop, her hands trembling so badly she typed the wrong password 3 times. I had never seen her lose composure like that. I felt something inside me settle. Not triumph, not revenge, just a quiet release from years of being underestimated. Nathan Cole continued revealing the financial missteps Victoria Hayes had authorized, the unnecessary expenses, the delayed maintenance, the misuse of family funds. Every document was backed with timestamps, emails, and approvals marked with her initials. Sophia Lane jumped in again, trying to defend Victoria Hayes, but Nathan Cole placed a copy of one of the transaction forms in her hand. She sank back into her chair without another word. Jacob Reed finally spoke, trying to cloak his curiosity and concern, but everyone could see through it. He wanted to know how this shifted the power dynamic, how it affected him. Edward Grant still had not spoken, but the disappointment etched in his expression was not directed at me. It was pointed straight at Victoria Hayes. Nathan Cole wrapped up by stating that for 4 years every major decision regarding the building required my approval and mine alone. That Victoria Hayes had only been acting as a temporary manager with no real authority. The entire room absorbed the truth in complete silence. Victoria Hayes' influence evaporated. Mine took its place. Then came the final documents, the financial records showing that Victoria Hayes had attempted to move repair funds into her personal account before the bank blocked it. Jacob Reed's demeanor flipped instantly. Suddenly he spoke to me with respect, as if he could wipe clean the memory of how dismissive he had been an hour earlier. Victoria Hayes crumbled further when Nathan Cole explained that I had the right to restructure the entire management team of Hawthorne Park effective immediately. At the end of the stack was another discovery. Several unjustified legal service charges Victoria Hayes had approved for her private counsel, hidden within building expenses, in preparation for a long-term takeover of family assets. That was the moment Victoria Hayes understood it was over. Her power, her story, her control. And for the first time in years, the room finally looked at me not as the failure Victoria Hayes painted me to be, but as the person who had quietly held the authority all along. The shock in the room deepened as Nathan Cole outlined my authority as majority owner, my right to regulate rent restructure management and override any administrative decisions Victoria Hayes had made in the last 4 years. It rippled through the living room like a crack spreading across glass. Victoria Hayes' eyes widened, then narrowed, and she tried to regain control by insisting I had engineered everything to attack her. But the accusation carried no weight. She had nothing to counter the documents laid out in front of her. I asked her directly why she had delayed repairing the heating system for 2 years, knowing the tenants suffered through harsh winters. She opened her mouth to speak, but Nathan Cole displayed photos of each floor before and after the upgrades, proof of how much I had done and how little she ever approved. The comparison was undeniable. Sophia Lane stepped in to defend her, grasping for any thread that could salvage Victoria Hayes' credibility. Nathan Cole calmly lifted an email Victoria Hayes once sent to the former building supervisor, bluntly dismissing a repair request to save the budget. The air left the room. Whatever illusion Victoria Hayes still had of competence evaporated. Jacob Reed was not spared either. Nathan Cole revealed a recorded inquiry he had made months earlier, asking Victoria Hayes to sell him a portion of Hawthorne Park at an unfairly low price. In exchange, he promised to help her secure a higher position in the family trust. The room turned on Jacob Reed almost as quickly as it had turned on Victoria Hayes. Half the relatives who had nodded along with Victoria Hayes earlier now shifted uncomfortably toward my side of the room. Their changing expressions made it clear they were beginning to see the truth of the last 4 years. I turned to Victoria Hayes again. Why did you approve a $22,000 payment to a law office unrelated to the building? She stiffened. Her silence stretched, pulling every eye toward her. When she did not answer, Nathan Cole quietly slid forward the supporting paperwork. The payment went toward legal preparation for her attempt to gain full control of the family assets. The atmosphere tightened to the point of suffocation. This was no longer about my rent or about a contract. It was about years of manipulation and calculated deceit. It was a battle she had been waging long before I ever realized I was a part of it. Victoria Hayes' voice trembled as she blamed me for everything, claiming that grandmother favored me unfairly, that she had been forced to shoulder all the family responsibilities alone. I met her accusation with the truth that grandmother left certain documents to me because she knew I saw things no one else cared to notice. It was not favoritism, it was clarity. Jacob Reed, unable to resist stirring chaos, demanded to know what exactly grandmother left in the safe. His loud question forced me into an answer I had long avoided sharing. I told them all about the letter, the money she entrusted me with, and the message she left that I would know when to use it. Victoria Hayes' face drained of color. For the first time, she realized that grandmother had understood everything she had tried to hide. The power dynamics in the room shifted visibly. Old alliances dissolved, new ones formed. Every unspoken tension began to surface. I was not just confronting Victoria Hayes anymore. I was unraveling the structure of authority my family had operated under for years. The revelations came one after another. A note in grandmother's handwriting warning Victoria Hayes not to overstep. Building valuations showing Hawthorne Park had doubled in worth since I acquired it. Records of Victoria Hayes applying for a property-backed loan she had no rights to. And a suspicious transfer buried deep in the financial logs, clearly linked to a private fund she tried to establish. By the time the last document hit the table, Victoria Hayes was not just losing control while she was watching her entire empire collapse. The room fractured. Voices rose. Relatives turned on one another. The security of all the privileges Victoria Hayes had built her identity on was slipping through her fingers. I saw the moment she realized I was not backing down. I was taking back everything she had manipulated for years. I gave her no room to breathe. I demanded she explain the $60,000 secondary fund she hid 2 years ago. She stuttered, denied, then froze when Nathan Cole presented proof of the transfer. Every pillar she had leaned on crumbled at once. So I delivered the final line. She would sign a market-rate lease for the penthouse or vacate it within 70 days. She laughed weakly, asking if I truly had it in me to evict my own sister. I told her respect had nothing to do with bloodlines, and grandmother had taught me that better than anyone. The room held its breath. Victoria Hayes faltered for the first time. Her confidence shattered. Her hands trembled as she held the papers, knowing neither path was easy and neither left her in control. And then, breaking his silence, Edward Grant stood and said, "Grandmother had chosen the right person to carry responsibility." That was the blow Victoria Hayes never expected. Her tears came with anger, with blame, with desperation. And as she cried, the entire family watched the truth of who she truly was unravel in real time. The room fell into a thick, crushing silence after my ultimatum. Victoria Hayes stood in the center, her breath uneven, her fingers trembling as she clutched the contract. No one dared move. No one dared speak. It was the kind of silence that divided everything into before and after. Slowly, I could feel the energy of the room changing. Relatives who had once clung to Victoria Hayes' influence now turned their attention to me with caution, uncertainty, and a dawning respect they had never given me before. Sophia Lane fidgeted anxiously, finally recognizing that her discounted lease was not guaranteed anymore. Her loyalty had always been transactional. Now she had to confront the cost. Jacob Reed tried to bridge the tension. He stood and offered some shallow attempt at reconciliation, something about family unity and mutual benefit. But Edward Grant shot him a single sharp look that sliced through whatever scheme Jacob Reed was preparing. He sat back down instantly. For the first time in my life, I felt a shift. No one was treating me like a burden or an afterthought. They were waiting for me, watching me, recognizing me. Nathan Cole suggested a short pause so everyone could review the documents again. Victoria Hayes did not wait. She snatched the stack of papers from his hand, flipping through them quickly, desperately searching for an inconsistency, a loophole, anything that could reverse what was happening. But no amount of frantic page-turning could change the signatures or the transaction. Her tears spilled over. She looked up at me and accused me of betrayal, saying I had hidden everything from her. I told her she had mistaken silence for weakness when in truth grandmother had asked me to wait until I needed to act. And this moment right here was exactly what she meant. Nathan Cole laid out more documentation, including the updated appraisal showing Hawthorne Park's value had risen from $3.2 million to $6.0 million because of the improvements I had made. The reaction in the room was immediate shock, disbelief, and then frustration directed squarely at Victoria Hayes. How had she overlooked something so significant? Victoria Hayes tried to push the blame outward, claiming she was overwhelmed and unsupported. Nathan Cole pulled out email records showing she had intentionally blocked other family members from helping, preferring full control to transparency. Then came the blow she did not expect. Jacob Reed stepped forward and admitted Victoria Hayes had tried to sell 10% of her perceived ownership to him to cover her personal debts. Gasps filled the room. Victoria Hayes denied it, but Nathan Cole calmly opened his folder and revealed a draft of the contract she had given a different law office. Her face went chalk white. Sophia Lane pointed at Victoria Hayes, calling her manipulative, but I could see the truth. She was not angry at Victoria Hayes' lies. She was afraid of losing her comfort. Fear not integrity guided her outrage. I stood and announced that effective immediately I was suspending Victoria Hayes from all management duties of Hawthorne Park pending a formal hearing in 3 days. Nathan Cole confirmed that I was fully within my legal rights to do so. The statement hit the room like a heavy hammer. Victoria Hayes staggered. She grabbed the edge of the table to keep herself upright. Her voice broke as she whispered, "We are family." I met her gaze and told her, "Family does not give you the right to mistreat the people you think are beneath you. Not then, not now, not ever." Edward Grant rose and declared the meeting adjourned. "The truth is clear," he said, "and it is time we stop entertaining lies." The last collapse came when Nathan Cole revealed one more document Victoria Hayes had attempted just a month ago to transfer $12,000 from the family fund into her personal account. It was small compared to the others, but it was undeniable. It stripped away whatever illusion she still clung to. The room did not just belong to me now. The story did too. And Victoria Hayes understood that nothing she said, no tears she cried, could undo the consequences of everything she had built on deception. The power she once wielded so effortlessly was gone. She stood there defeated with no one left to protect her, not even the people she had manipulated for years. When that meeting finally ended and everyone drifted out of the room, some shaken, some silent, some suddenly polite in a way they had never been with me before, I just stood there for a moment, letting the weight of everything settle. It struck me how strange it was that the truth had always been there, quietly waiting the same way I had lived my life. And yet it took just one moment, one decision to finally bring it all into the light. I did not feel victorious. I did not feel proud. What I felt was something simpler, something steadier, like taking a breath I had been holding for years. I realized strength does not always roar, and justice does not always come with applause. Sometimes it comes in the form of finally standing your ground, even when no one believes you can. And sometimes that is enough. If you are still here with me now, listening to the end of this story, thank you. It means more than you think. Before you go, I would love to know you are here with me. Drop a hi in the comments or tell me where you are watching from, whether it is late at night, early morning, or somewhere in between. I always love seeing how far these stories travel, and somehow it makes the world feel a little less lonely. And if my story resonated with you even just a little, I hope you will subscribe to the channel. Not out of obligation, but because you want to hear more stories about truth, resilience, and the quiet power people do not always see. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.